Big Brother, mainstream media, government cover-ups. You want answers? Well, so does he. He's Alex Jones on the GCN Radio Network. And now, live from Austin, Texas, Alex Jones.
Read dozens in the first hour about how it's to defend against a corrupt government. It's to protect the people against crime. That if the government tries to take your guns, you need to overthrow them. That's the surest sign of tyranny. And so I see this as a great defeat because I read all 90-plus pages of the oral arguments last night, almost crying, because the supposed pro-gun justices would say, oh, well, I think we should have reasonable restrictions, but you can't, you can't just outright ban it. And besides, wouldn't that be a federal matter? I mean, I've got these quotes here. Now, Gun Owners of America helped with the brief. They're not running the brief. It freaked me out, and I'm writing articles about this right now with Paul Watson, to see even the people arguing on behalf of the Second Amendment saying, oh, well, we agree. There can be some restrictions. No, 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 no. They are going to use this. And they're also going to use it to go out and say, oh, we've won. The Second Amendment's safe. You type gun control into Google, folks, or Gun Owners of America, where they're fighting, or NRA. Hundreds of articles come up every day. We're being hit from every angle. Now I'm going to shut up and go to Larry Pratt, a very busy man, executive directors of Gun Owners of America. They're the only big pro-Second Amendment group in the country. They're the second largest. The NRA has millions of great members, but they are a Trojan horse. Gun Owners of America would never expose that. They wanted to be nice. Until last year, their board said, let's just go public with all their own documents. They've written articles showing their own quotes about how they are for gun control. They are the authors of gun control. So all NRA members must get out of the NRA now, and they must go support gun owners. They've tripled the size of the BATF. We are in the fight of our lives for the Second Amendment, and the media and the gun grabbers have gotten slick. They've, just like Bush, during the 2004 election, got up and said, I'm for the Second Amendment individual right to keep and bear arms. And the Justice Department said, well, he clarifies if prescribed by law and that law can curtail it. Well, that's what the Supreme Court's saying, but they've never had the Supreme Court say that. This will be the Supreme Court actually. Now, we'll see if Larry Pratt disagrees with me, and I know he wants to be positive, but Larry, I spent 2 hours last night reading this, and I couldn't sleep last night, Larry.
Well, Alex, I think your characterization is quite spot on, and it made me all the happier when I was listening to that proceeding to know that we had our own brief before the court. By the way, people can find that at gunowners.org. It's right there on our home page. We made the point that, well, in fact, we knew that there'd be a problem with trying to define away, slice away the true meaning of the Second Amendment. And it doesn't give us any reassurance at all to hear people celebrate, oh, the judges are going to determine that we do have an individual right to keep and bear arms. After all, that argument will be over. Well, actually, that may be true. That argument may be over. However, but the big word, this is not the end of the issue as far as they're concerned on the court, because they spent a fair amount of time, as you know, Alex, discussing whether we should have this or that or the other level of scrutiny. Now, level of scrutiny is lawyer talk for how far away from the Constitution can we make a ruling before we get run out of town on a rail. And they were arguing in the Bush brief, and I think there could possibly be support for agreeing with the Bush brief, because that's something that the conservatives on the court tend to do, big government conservatives, I guess we could say, well, let's use the lowest level of scrutiny, meaning let's get as far away from the Constitution as possible. And there was even discussion yesterday about the founders' idea of the level of scrutiny shall not be infringed. We didn't think that the judges may have been familiar with that word, so we went back to an 1828 dictionary, and we put the definition of infringe in our brief, just so they would, have that handy.
It means don't touch it.
Yeah, keep your hands off. It's real plain. And we are concerned that there was discussion during the hearing about, well, does it actually mean then, Mr. Counsel for Heller and D.C. versus Heller, does it really mean shall not be unreasonably infringed? And he sort of agreed with that, and then said, well, yeah, it wouldn't preclude banning machine guns, it wouldn't preclude licensing gun owners. Well, there's the ball game right there. They license gun owners in New York City. Try to get one.
Well, I mean, I've got one of the quotes here, and that's the problem. It's 90-something pages just reading the oral arguments and the justices' comments. But I've got multiple justices saying, I don't see a problem with banning all handguns. I don't see a problem. Yeah, you can have a right, but basically they're saying locked up at a gun club where you can go out with an instructor over you and shoot your gun once a week.
Sure, because if you're concerned about your own defense, well, then call 9/11. And, of course, as our friends at Jews for Preservation of Firearms Ownership entitled one of their books, Dial 9/11 and Die. Well, because by the time the cops get there, that's what's going to happen.
Larry, I'm going to put a call to action out here, and I'm so angry I literally feel like taking my broadcast chair and throwing it through the broadcast window right now because the Second Amendment is so clear. The Founding Fathers, the debates, the Federalist Papers, the Anti-Federalist Papers, this is one of the few issues where there was universal agreement. It is an individual right, mainly against tyrannical government. They have no power to restrict. The areas where they have no gun laws, and there are places people think we'd have bedlam and death, there are places where there are no gun laws, state laws, like Vermont, like
Alaska, like most of Montana.
Exactly, and those are the lowest crime rates, even in big urban centers in the country. And we have the facts, we know the truth, and we know the globalists want our guns. I want a call to action, and I'm telling everybody right now, we're going to write articles at Infowars.com. We're going to write articles at PrisonPlanet.com. Larry, we need you to come out now, and I know you are. Come out now, put in articles. We can get it out to everybody explaining this is a giant hoax. I have the New York Law Journal. I have Washington Post, AP, Reuters. I mean, you type this in, Supreme Court Second Amendment, hundreds of articles all saying we've won.
Right.
And that is an enemy tactic they always use, and they do it more and more now to just say,
go back to sleep.
Go back to sleep. And meanwhile, they've always been criminal. They've always been in the wrong. They've never had a Supreme Court ruling saying they can touch any of our guns. And then I'm reading even the pro-5 justices talk about a Trojan horse, and there you go, Scalia, who believes in hunting, and then he makes a statement about, well, I think we need this for hunting. I mean, folks, they are coming after you. This is it. And they're now going to say, well, the Supreme Court said you've got a right, but we say what that right is. Larry, what do? We've got a emergency. I mean, you can't wait. You got to call everybody you know that's an NRA member. When we write these articles, I'm begging you, email them every day to everybody you know for 6 months straight. We've got to let people know that this is it. I mean, this is the biggest attack on the Second Amendment in our 233-year history.
Well, the first thing that we're going to be doing is putting out an email alert, probably go out tomorrow, giving people a wrap-up of what happened and the kind of analysis that you're talking about so that people realize that this is not the time to go to sleep. And we're going to we actually got an op-ed in USA Today, of all places, that our attorneys were able to write, and they made the arguments that should have been made by Mr. Heller's attorney before the court, that if any gun is protected by the Second Amendment, it's the M16 Army rifle machine gun. That's because it's the direct lineal descendant of what they were using at the time of the framing of the Constitution and of the Bill of Rights. And so we took that head on and pointed out that do not and shall not be infringed means no.
And let me just say this. We have a lot of listeners that got a lot of money. Don't send me money. Don't give me money. If you want to give it to Larry, that's fine, but tell him what you want it for. We need people to take simple articles that have 4 to 5 founding father quotes and say the Supreme Court is running a giant con job. They are about to rule that you have a right, but that they can restrict it. That is a fraud. If they do that, it'll be just like New York City 50 years ago where they say you have a right, but we can restrict it. And then they just don't issue the permits.
Exactly right. That's exactly what licensing is all about.
I'm telling you, listeners that have money, and I know we got them, and I'm too busy to even call you up. Okay, and you know who you are out there. I'm going to try to put something together. Larry can't. Larry, if people were to call you and say, I want to give you $100,000 for full-page ads, in, say, the Washington Times, Washington Post, so we can email and fax 10,000 copies to the Supreme Court so they're knee-deep. I mean, I think that's the type of aggressive stuff. We got to get in the streets. We got to put a call out to the NRA members to realize they're being Judas goaded. I mean, this is the Alamo. They are coming over the walls. This is it.
This is an amazing day that we had before us yesterday, and I think it's very concerning. I don't think you're exaggerating this one bit. We are in trouble.